Welcome, AXA family and friends, to Common Purpose, Uncommon Times. I am your long-lost Executive Director, Wes Smith. It's an honor to serve all of you. We actually haven't gone anywhere. We've been really busy at the AXA offices, as you've seen from all of our announcements and the work that we're doing. But for this program, we wanted to make sure that we had content for you. You'll remember that we started in March last year with Common Purpose, and it was an attempt to bring people together because we knew people would feel isolated during the pandemic. So this was to connect people, to answer questions and clarify things, and to offer hope. And then we realized throughout the year that you're getting connected a lot virtually. And so we didn't want to overdo it with this program. And so as we have content, we'll bring people on that we think can clarify again, can provide some solution sets for you, some ideas, some practical solutions, and then also offer hope. And so look forward to us announcing when we have those. And in weeks we don't, we'll let you do other things on Monday night. But again, thanks for coming back. Thanks for being here. Before we get in, we've got a great panel tonight. We're going to talk to some boots on the ground experts looking at expanded learning hubs, how we prioritize some of our neediest students and provide safely in-person learning opportunities. So some great content. We'll have Dr. Naomi Bardach and Erin Sipes with us tonight. We'll get to them in just a minute and learn from them and be inspired by them. Before we get there, I want to remind folks this week's is a superintendent's symposium. If you haven't signed up or registered, please do so. We've got great content, anti-racism keynote speakers. We've got Dr. Pedro Noguera as a keynote speaker. They're going to have a panel of students telling you from the students' perspective how they've experienced the pandemic. So some powerful stuff. Please register if you haven't. We also have coming up Every Child Counts. I love that event. It's one of my favorite every year. At AXA, we understand that not just some children, every child counts. And this conference is a priority for those who are serving our neediest populations, with some great content there, resources, even lots of legal panels so that folks can better serve our neediest students. So that's a great event. And we have a little promo we want to show. It's a brief one really quickly. So let's go ahead and roll the promo for ECC. Awesome, great, as I said, great content there. Hope you can participate. As I said, one of my favorite events each year. And even though we're doing these things virtually, the learning is still rich and it's still there. The inspiration is still there. So hope to see you at ECC. We're going to talk to some experts right now, people in the field who are doing the work that many of you are doing, or trying to figure out how best to do that work safely. So let me welcome to Common Purpose Dr. Naomi Bardach and Erin Sipes. And welcome. And just a bit of the bio. We don't read too long of bios, just because people tune us out, right, if we do. But Dr. Bardach works at UC San Francisco as pediatrician assistant professor. And importantly as well for all of you, she's leading the efforts for Governor Newsom and the California Safe Schools for All movement. So we're glad to have her here. And Erin Sipes is a program specialist, Office of Expanded Learning for the Elk Grove Unified School District. So right near us here in Sacramento. Anyway, welcome to the show tonight. We're very happy to have you, and our members can't wait. So let's just get into it. And Dr. Bardack, I'll start with you, because one of the things on our members' minds right now, relative to reopening schools for in-person instruction, right, is how do we do that safely for students, for staff certainly, and for our communities, for those folks who have people within the system who are also impacted by infection rates, et cetera. So as we talk about and prioritize in-person instruction, people are asking, gosh, but the data um, doesn't seem to support that. However, the data are changing. So what are you seeing right now in the data statewide that's encouraging you, is encouraging for all of us relative to offering in-person instruction safely?
So I think it's really helpful to think about exactly what you're saying, which is that we are learning a lot. We know a lot more since we did in March. And what we thought in the beginning was that kids were going to be passing around the infection. We thought that was a clear thing. That's what we know. Every kid has a cough and a cold, and then everybody else gets it around them. And it's just COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is different than those other infections, and that kids don't transmit it the way that they do other infections. And actually, the youngest kids in elementary school are the least likely to transmit it. It's the adult to adult transmission that's the place where we have to worry more. And then the other piece is, are schools contributing to transmission, to community transmission? Is if you bring a bunch of people together in a school, do they pass around? And we know two things. We've seen how to do schools wrong. And that's actually probably extremely important to point to, which is that we know that if you pack in a lot of students, and if they're not wearing masks, and if the windows are closed and the air conditioning's on, and they're symptomatic, that's how outbreaks are happening. And we also know that if we do all the right layers and we put into place all those safeguards that we have learned about since March and over the summer and blah, 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 that we can actually have very safe schools. There's a very recent article actually from a high impact journal called the Pediatrics Journal, which is about how people did it very safely in North Carolina with good data. And we also have data from the New York schools. California data, actually, part of the Safe Schools plan is to get better data so that we can, as schools are opening, there are schools around the state, and we haven't seen outbreaks in the schools, just as other states haven't seen outbreaks when they have the right layers in place. But we want to continue to watch that. And so that's part of the plan, is actually to do what they sort of more transparency, where we'll have a dashboard with information about what are the cases and what are the outbreaks in schools specifically, not just broadly in our communities.
No, thank you for that. And thank you for pointing out too that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And folks all around the country, in fact, in the state, but also in other states, are doing it the right way. And the layers that you mentioned, the social distancing, wearing masks, washing our hands, ventilation, for heaven's sakes, right? We can't close those doors and windows and expect to have great results. So people are doing it the right way, and it is working. Tonight, both of you will share some of those examples of where it's working. And I should have said this at the onset, we really appreciate that this administration has prioritized public education. That is absolutely true from the beginning of the pandemic, and continue to try to work with experts like yourself to make sure that we do the best we can for our students, but do so safely. And so we appreciate that. A part of that conversation right now, especially, is the issue of vaccinations. And while some will say, well, vaccinations, that's not a reopening schools solution. A lot of our members think that it really can be. That if we get all educators vaccinated, then we're more likely to open in-person instruction and do so safely, right? We prioritize educators in California in the 1B category, but in a lot of the counties, even though they're in 1B, they're at the bottom of 1B, and so they're still not getting vaccinated, where in others, they are. So as you look forward, your crystal ball, and look at where we're headed, how do we continue to prioritize educators so that we can better, more safely reopen schools within this vaccination tier?
There's a couple of things I so feel so strongly that it's such an important piece to do, to prioritize, right? That is actually like a key piece of making sure that is a clear thing, because prioritizing means that we prioritize the education piece, and we know that schools should be the last things to close and the first things to open. That's what the CDC just said last week, and I think it's really true. It's so important for our students, for our families, for our teachers, even, that it's really so crucial. And then the vaccination piece, how do you put that together? I think that I think it will continue to evolve in some ways. Actually, we just released a school guidance 2 weeks ago, and we actually specifically said, like, we don't actually have a total answer here. So I think that it's a priority. The operationalization of it, I think, is complicated, and it's probably complicated in a couple ways. One of which is, how do you sort of verify that people are teachers versus other things? And I think also different counties are actually doing it differently. Some of them are prioritizing educators ahead of other people in Tier 1B, and some of them are making other decisions. So that's also still an ongoing sort of thing. And I probably would say that my general philosophy is we should just go as much as we can with vaccinations, and at the same time continue to plan. We know that those safety layers also provide a ton of safety. They stop that in-school transmission, and so there shouldn't be a sense of we're going to lean back and wait for that vaccine. We're going to move forward, lean forward on everything, lean forward on vaccines, but also keep planning for opening schools, because the vaccination is going to take a while, not just for educators, but there's going to be people worried about the students and also about the families.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you mentioned priority, and I think we have to be fair in all these conversations and recognize that the administration, legislature, there are a lot of priorities in California. Certainly educators, one of them, public education, like you said, schools should be the last thing to close, first thing to open. But when we look at mortality rates and who's really succumbing to this horrible pandemic, it is the older generation. And so it would be insensitive and tone deaf for us to say that we shouldn't be prioritizing those folks. We should, because they're highly susceptible to this. So thank you for sharing that. Let's dive into, as Dr. Bardack said, there are people doing it the right way, putting forward the right layers, I think she said. And Erin Sipes and Elk Grove Unified, they're doing that. So Erin, welcome, and thanks for being here. Tell us about the expanded learning opportunities in Elk Grove.
Sure, I'd be happy to. We kind of get to be the dress rehearsal for the district, so that's the layers. We have started programs at 17 of our schools, which is about a third of our elementary schools. And we're using the expanded learning program. So ACES grant, After School Education and Safety grant, was the launch pad for that. We've supplemented that with other district funds, and we're creating a program where we're prioritizing the same new students with the high needs that would normally be in the after school programs at those school sites. So we are prioritizing students who need to be there, and the funding is following the number of students who qualify for free and reduced price meals. So it's typically at our lower socioeconomic schools. And we started small. So in relation to that safety piece and the layering piece, like I said, we're the dress rehearsal. We started small so that our custodial staff would figure out how long it takes to clean the classrooms. And, we could navigate, what does it look like when students are moving through the hallways on campus, or, when we know what 6 feet of distance looks like in a classroom, but what does it look like for arrival and dismissal? What does it look like for a fire drill? So, we have small groups of students on campus, just a few cohorts at each of those school sites, and we're able to safely navigate some of those things so that we'll be ready to scale up when we're able to reopen fully and have the rest of the students on campus.
Wow, no, thank you for that. And I love that metaphor of a dress rehearsal, that we are, continuously learning in our systems. And that's one of the reasons why I know we're not just going to get through this, we're going to thrive because of this. And I think that metaphor speaks to what so many districts and schools are doing, in counties all over the state, learning as they go, scaling up. So that we don't have, a whole bunch of failure. One of the things that moved me when I spoke with you, you talked about the student subgroups that you've identified within Elk Grove Unified. and your passion was just unavoidable. I can tell you care. Talk to our members about how you in Elk Grove are identifying those student populations that need that support, especially right now.
It's a challenge because everybody needs support right now. This pandemic has affected everybody in their own way, and everybody has things going on. We have prioritized first and foremost our youth experiencing homelessness and youth who are in foster care. And then beyond that, because everybody has their own story, we've relied heavily on our school sites to help us identify who is in most need of service. So that may have been students who have connectivity issues and hadn't logged into distance learning. We had some students who hadn't been here since March, hadn't logged in and hadn't checked in, or were having infrequent attendance. We had students who were left home alone, and once we became aware of that, young students whose parents had to work, and so they're safest with us. And so we have been able to identify individuals based on what the school knows about their community, what the school knows about what their families are doing, and what the teachers are sharing with us based on where they see the needs.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's and what you said up front. Everybody needs additional support right now. We talk about some of our student subgroups like, now they'll be fine regardless. No, that's not true. This is hard on everybody. The social emotional impact of this on even our best resourced student populations is severe. Also on educators, right? On you and both of you and what you're doing in the field, and all of your colleagues. So thank you for that. But I want to remind everyone watching tonight that, as always, if you have any questions for our panel, we'll get to those in just a bit. Go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll ask as many as we can tonight. I wanted to go to Dr. Bardack, though, because she's also doing Learning Hub work in San Francisco Unified School District, so another place where they're doing it the right way. Dr. Bardack, can you speak to that Learning Hub? What does it look like? What are you doing there in San Francisco Unified?
Yeah, I won't take any credit actually for setting up the Schools Hub work that's being done here in San Francisco. That's being run by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF. But as with my other hat on of the being a UCS Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Health Policy Research at UCSF, we're doing a research project in collaboration with the people who are running the community hubs or the learning hubs to try and better understand or lift up all of the good work that's being done there, because we know that there's actually a lot of great lessons learned on the ground, exactly what Erin was just talking about, that we should actually be learning from each other and helping to share what it is that as people are doing this implementation of in-person instruction with kids who are, in their stable groups, and how's the masking going and how's the physical distancing going, we should learn those lessons from people about what do they find that works well and maybe what didn't totally work well for better dissemination. So that's the kind of work we're doing. We're going in and we do some observations on the ground of how things are going on those safety practices, and then we talk to the leadership in the hubs to find out, what do they learn, what do they think works well, and what would they share with others.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Once again, inspecting what we expect, right? If we're expecting students to be served, let's inspect that. Let's look at how we're doing, and learn from that. We had a question actually in the chat that speaks to this. What have we learned? Jennifer Peck. Jennifer, I miss you, by the way. This talk on pandemic. I can't wait till we can get together again and talk about how to better serve California's 6.3 million students. But Jennifer asked, have there been any challenges with the youngest kids keeping masks on? Dr. Bardack, I'll go to you first and see if you want to take a shot at that.
I'll say that at the beginning of the pandemic, I think almost every adult, and as a pediatrician, I was like, kids are not going to keep those masks on. That is ridiculous. And also they're going to just touch their faces. I mean, it's going to be like really bad. And it turns out that kids are extraordinarily adaptable, extraordinarily resilient, and they actually can keep their masks on. And so I would say probably, if you have a TK kid, and my observation, we did a study actually in indoor summer camps with kids as young as kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. The TK kids probably had a little bit more trouble, but I would actually say they're sometimes the older kids also had a little bit of trouble because they also don't always want to keep their mask on. So, but generally speaking, all of them did a pretty good job. I think that's really helpful to lift up, give praise to the teachers who are good at creating routine, good at creating structure, good at helping people, helping kids sort of do the things like masking where they normalize it and they make it fun, and then it's fine. And so I actually think that that's what we observed is that and continue to observe in the learning hubs that people are able to do it, and they're good at it.
Yeah. So just to be clear, what I'm hearing you say is you're seeing resilience. You're seeing where people are intentional about teaching their students how to do this, and they put in routines. We all know the importance of routines for our young people, that it's working, that you're seeing students wearing their masks. That some of my adult family members on Facebook would learn that same lesson. My family are not as teachable or as resilient, I worry, as some of our students, but that's great. We had another question that was really, Erin, gonna be one of the questions I asked you anyway, about how do you get buy-in when you have this expanded learning opportunity where you're doing these dress rehearsals, right, throughout Elk Grove. How do you get buy-in from community? How do you get buy-in from labor groups and all those folks that it takes to do that work? And then Jessica Gunderson asked this question in the chat, asked if you could speak about the demand from families and kids for in-person care and strategies for outreach and engagement with parents and families. So again, this overall topic of engagement. Can you speak to that, Erin?
Yeah, engagement and buy-in in my head are kind of two topics, but I'll try to hit both of those. So the buy-in piece, I can tell you that our educators want to be with children. And so, most of our folks, once they were assured that it was safe, that we had a plan, and that, it had been approved by the public health department, and they were eager to have students back on campus. For some of our families who were invited to join our learning hubs, some were hesitant. Some would prefer to have their children at home right now with the unsurety of what's out there. But for the most part, we've had, once you explain it, once you share what the plan is, what the safety protocols are going to be, and we can show you what it looks like. We even did a promotional video where we had children of staff members come on a campus and model what is it going to look like to wear masks on campus? What does 6 feet of distance look like for a student? How will we serve meals to our students on campus? All of those things were captured in this quick little video. So when we first invited families, we made sure that they understood that safety was our priority, and that they understood that we had kind of thought those things through, what the cleaning regimen would be, all of that stuff. And so I think for that piece, we were able to get the buy-in. As far as outreach and engagement of parents and families, like I said, some of the students who were prioritized were those students that we haven't heard from, that they haven't been logging in. And, we've done the normal attendance checks and calls, and sometimes even the, sending folks out to knock on the front door and step back 6 feet and wait for the door to open and make sure, do you have the technology? Are you able to log in? Is there anything impeding you from participating? And so we did reach out to some of those families. We've worked with, interpreters to make sure that we're reaching out to families in their primary languages. Our Office of Family and Community Engagement has done a lot with making information accessible and making sure that we reach families in multiple ways. We've done mass emails, and we've posted things on the website. We've done text messages and things through our student information system to try to reach families in as many ways as possible. And then, picking up the phone and making individual phone calls to the students that you haven't heard from and that you need to check in with. And most families are happy to hear from us, glad to hear from us, grateful for the service.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We often quote Churchill on here, never waste a good crisis, in an attempt to say, hey, look, let's learn from this, right? And I think one of the things we've done with this narrowing of the digital divide is figure out when we get back to our new normal, how we may better engage students, how we might not lose them as often as we do. And so I was just really encouraged to hear that one of the groups you're looking at are those that hadn't been attending, and using your resources to make sure that, in your district, no students are lost. I think that should be the disposition of every educator in the state right now, because we can't afford to lose even one student. And, this is stressful for a lot of folks. And so I'm also hearing loud and clear that it's important to talk about all the safety precautions that you have. Because even students who don't worry about their own safety because they've seen the data, worry about their parents. I know my son doesn't really fear getting sick for his own health reasons, but because of my pre-existing condition, he worries every day that he's going to get something that I'm going to get and put me in harm's way. So really sharing and being transparent about these safety protocols, I think, is really important, and why the state is elevating transparency right now, to reaffirm with each of our stakeholders, we got you. This is what we're doing, to make sure that it's safe. Because, like we always say, we want them to be in that best learning environment, which exponentially is true that's in person, but when it's safe to do so, right? Which is the rub. We always end with offering hope for our members. I'll start with the two of you providing hope for me, and let me describe why. It's not lost on me that Elk Grove Unified was one of the first districts to have a confirmed case. And back in March, they were saying, because I was in communication with the district and the state all weekend, and they were saying, what do we do? We've got to make a decision. None of us knows what this looks like. At the time, there wasn't really any state guidelines. We didn't have the state checklists back then. We didn't have state websites, for this. We didn't have anything. And so the superintendent and school board had to make a very, very tough decision, really in a vacuum, and they made it. And so what ACTS has been saying is we need to have these statewide guidelines. So these things are not untenable at the local level. So they're not in this political vice that they shouldn't be in. And that's what the state's been doing recently. So Dr. Bardack, you and what you're representing for the Safe Schools for All and the transparency, the data collection. See, this is what we've been talking about. The state having statewide standards and expectations, systems of support and communication so that our folks at the local level, like those in Elk Grove Unified, have a fighting chance. So the two of you being on here tonight, you give me hope. Dr. Bardack, what gives you hope?
There are a lot of things that give me hope, but I'll say the thing that really gives me the most hope right now is the level of collaboration and people working together and trying to do lessons learned. This is a relatively new leadership role, and so people will reach out to me now and they say, I want to help, I want to be involved, and people are working. I even got an email the other day from somebody saying, hey, can you bring a group of us together so we can learn together, so we can learn from each other? And I think that it is the only way forward. The less fighting, more collaboration, more lessons learned is what's giving me hope.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Erin, how about you? What gives you hope?
The collaboration for sure. And, this was a heavy lift to get these launched, but everybody was willing to jump in on that. And then even more than that, the relationships, because some of our family, our staff, our students have been on their own for a while. And as soon as you see them back on campus and back together, it's like instant connection. It's the, I care about you. I'm here for you. I'm dedicated to this program and to being here with you. And you see it from the students as well. Some of them were actually sad to go on Christmas break, which I've never seen in my educational career. So that's hopeful to me, you know, that we're all going to be together again soon enough, and we'll have kids back in school.
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning relationships. I always say anything we do successfully, we do through a relationship. It's relationships, relationships, relationships. So thank you. And to both of you, Dr. Naomi Bardach and Erin Sipes, thanks for spending some time on a Monday night when you could be getting ready to watch The Bachelorette or whatever it is you do on Monday night, that you took time out of your busy schedules, all kidding aside, to help our members understand what you've learned, what you're learning, to be inspired by you. You've helped. I hope you walk away tonight knowing you made a difference. Anyway, thanks for being here. Acts of family and friends. We'll see you the next time we have some content that we think is going to be of interest to you. In the meantime, stay safe, be well.